Hello, Dubbie crew and everyone out there watching this channel. It's me, John, here with another talkie for you. Before I jump into it, I'd like to remind everyone that it means a lot to me and can help start us off with the right New Year's resolution to get you all to subscribe, to view this channel, to share it with your friends, and to leave comments about what you agree with, what you disagree with. I don't know if I'll follow any of that. I'm going to kind of do the stuff that I want to do on the channel, but realistically, I will probably listen to your feedback, because I'm not too greedy. And I'm going to use that as my jumping off point for this message today, which is really a personal message to Brian Lewis, to the professor for Tolarian Community College, who I want to start by saying is a well-deserved leading figure within Wizards of the Coast, well, not within Wizards of the Coast, but within the Magic the Gathering community, I should say, and should be a much feared figure from Wizards of the Coast because his insight and depth of knowledge towards the products is unparalleled. You should subscribe to him, view his channels as well. He is just full of perfect knowledge that you would actually want to have towards the game, and he deserves the accolades and praise that he has. And for today, I'd like to point out his most recent video that was released, which is part of a series that he does annually as sort of a capstone for the year's progress for Magic the Gathering as a game. As the best game on the planet, which I agree with him here as well, it is absolutely the best game that people have ever created. He puts out a countdown list with some heavy hitters with it as well, beyond the 5 that he covers, which are the 5 best products of the year. And for 2022, I think that was a challenge to come up with, so kudos for doing that as well. And the 5 worst products for Magic the Gathering for the year 2022, which was a bit easier to hit, I think, for this year. My main issue with this is his parting words, which was a little bit tongue-in-cheek that he's sending out a greed card to everyone, a Magic card named Greed, to really emphasize that the problem with Magic the Gathering overall, beyond the individual products or the lack of products that were actually sold, can be summed up instead by suggesting that really the problem is the greed of Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast is a company that wants to make more money, and that greed, the argument goes, is killing the game. It is leading to player disenfranchisement, to collector disenfranchisement. No one believes the game will have value anymore, and it is just a matter of time. It could take years, but at some point, the game will die if they continue on this path. That was echoed by some opening remarks that we had through the video as well. Those opening remarks were from Richard Garfield, who, if you don't know, is the creator of Magic the Gathering, and is occasionally still involved with sets as well. Another person whose advice and wisdom from the game, and not just as the creator of the game, but as a lifelong player of it too, you should follow. These people do know what they're talking about, but I think they're wrong here. Richard Garfield had been talking about the conversations that he would have on a regular basis with R&D, with research and development towards the game, because Wizards of the Coast does put a lot of effort into making sure the game is going in the right direction. He was talking about how often there could be too much of a focus put on the collectability of the game as opposed to the playability of the game. And if a company were to focus on that, they would be missing the mark, mainly because they'd be leaving the players high and dry. If you don't have players for your game, the story would go, the company cannot sell as much. Richard of the Garfield, that doesn't fit. Richard Garfield is a brilliant man. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I would say the same for the professor for Tolarian Community College as well. Brilliant. He knows his stuff. But here, they don't know what they're talking about. Companies like Wizards of the Coast do not care about whether the right balance is set for players or for collectors. They do not care what happens to their products as they enter into the secondary market. The way they phrase that is that they do not acknowledge the secondary market, and while that can be untrue in a layman's terms form, that is legally correct. All Wizards of the Coast cares about is making money. That's not unique to Wizards of the Coast. I don't want anyone to think that they are unduly greedy. They're exactly as greedy as every other company. Their goal, their only goal, the only thing they care about is making money. And that's exactly as it should be. Every single company should care about nothing but making money. The way they make money is important to us as the consumers. Wizards of the Coast probably does believe that striking the right balance between players and striking the right balance between collectors is the best way for them to make as much money as possible. But if they see any evidence that would suggest that forgetting the game and treating it purely as a collectible would be the best path for them to make money, they will do that without a second thought, as will any company. It's not evil, it's not short-sighted, although they can make incorrect decisions. Focusing on making money is the only reason a company can continue to exist and can exist. If you believe a company is telling you, no, we're not just in it for the money, we're in it for the playability, we're in it for doing the right thing, we're in it for helping the planet, they're lying to you. And if you believe it, well, I've got some double feature to sell you, because apparently you'll buy anything. I hope no one does believe a company when they're telling you they care about something more than making money. And I also hope you have the depth of understanding to recognize that doesn't mean the company is out to hurt you. It means they have only one path they can follow. They either make money or they do not get investors to continue having the company go. It could survive for several years. Large companies could survive even longer than that. But without government bailouts, which isn't going to happen for Wizards of the Coast, no matter what government's in power, it's not an option for them to do anything other than what they think will make money. Consider this for a second. If you're a member of Tolarian Community College at the receiving card level, which I want to emphasize you should be. The content he's producing is wonderful. You should subscribe. You should be a Patreon member. You should do all of those things. I hope that he continues to provide this type of content. What the professor is suggesting is Wizards of the Coast should make less money and instead give that money to other perfectly deserving people, like the artists who produce different types of art for the cards. They should provide that money back to the players to have more robust Wizards Play Network play. They should give that money back to the local game stores, for example. All of those are reasonable things to state, but what would be the term that we would use if someone went to Wizards of the Coast and said, Wizards of the Coast, as an entity who exists only to make money, make less money, and instead give that money to me? Would I be greedy in asking for that? Because to me, that sounds like greed. I don't think it's a bad thing to ask for that, but it is greedy. It is greedy for me to say, make less money, other entity, because I just think you should, and instead give that money to me. Here's what a reasonable argument would look like, because I want to be clear, that's not a reasonable argument. Suggesting Wizards of the Coast should make less money is not only short-sighted, is not only what many Magic the Gathering players should not want to see. We want to see Wizards of the Coast make as much money as they possibly can. We hope they do it while taking less of our money, but that kind of means they'd be taking someone else's money. Whose money should they take to make as much money as they can to provide the best game that they can? If you believe they can provide as good a game while making less money, make that argument. How exactly would they do that? I have seen lots of suggestions, and again, the professor is a great example of being able to provide the feedback that Wizards of the Coast would love to hear. But as soon as that feedback is met with just make less money, they have nowhere to go. Wizards of the Coast couldn't listen to that even if they wanted to, and they don't want to listen to that. No one wants to hear make less money. There is nowhere to go with that argument. Here's what you should do instead, and this is a plea, honestly. You should hopefully take my words to heart and try to enact this change to the argument that you're making. Instead of stating that Wizards of the Coast should make less money, can you show them a better path to make more money? A path that's good for you too. Whether that means you want to see fewer products, whether that means that you want to see more products, whether you would like to see artists paid more, whether you would like to see more events, less proxies, more Magic the Gathering 30th if you're the one person on the planet who wants to see that. If that's what you want to see, all of that is not really feedback by itself. Tell Wizards of the Coast how they can make more money than they're making today, because they're stating they've had a record year. Profits are not at the highest level they've ever been, but are very high. The amount of product sold has never been higher. the amount of product sold online, the amount of product sold through Amazon, the amount of product sold through local game stores, all seems to be up. Could Wizards of the Coast be lying? Yes, they probably are, somewhere in there. I'm a data analyst. Someone's lying about their data there. But without contradictory data, I don't know what specifically they're lying about. I do know we're not providing an argument. Our best and brightest are not providing the argument that they should, and that's a disappointment. I'd like to see us start off 2023 with telling Wizards of the Coast not just what they should do to make less money, because that has nowhere to go, but what they could do to make more money. How do we find a win-win together? What do we really want as a community? Because I believe it's for Wizards of the Coast to be as profitable as possible while we get improvements to the best game that already exists. We don't want to see them go down a bad path, and they are, loudly, as every company is, telling us what path they need to go down. They need to go down a path of profitability. They need to go down a path where they make as much money as possible. Do we have a better path they could follow? All we need to show is what can they do to make even more money than they're making today. Back that up with some figures. Tell me where you'd like me to dig into, and I'm lending you guys my services to be able to do that as well. They're quite formidable. You should take advantage of them. I hope you do. If you can show me where an argument could be made that Wizards of the Coast could make more money than they're making today by doing something different, let's show them that argument. That would be a lot better than just labeling them as greedy because they want to do the one thing that a company can do.